Hello everyone, I'm King Cat, and welcome back to part 3 of my MMORPG Devlog series, where I program my new online game, Voxel Odyssey. Today, I'd like to begin working on server-client communication. My goal by the end of this episode is to have players walking around and able to see each other, even if they're just cubes moving about on the screen. To do that, I'm going to need to construct a solid networking infrastructure. This setup will come in 3 parts, I think. I'll have clients, game servers, which clients play on, and an authentication server that manages inter-game server communication and saving data, as well as, of course, logging clients in. I'm beginning by programming the client-side GUI system, since it'll be necessary for player login and account creation. This is pretty simple. I'm simply loading various GUI prefabs from the Unity Resources folder based on their name. Each GUI setup comes with a GUI window component attached, and that GUI window component is what my code keeps track of. This way, I'm easily able to close, open, and add functionality to different GUI setups. So, now I've finished the GUI framework, and I've also added some simple screens for connection and logon. The next step here is to get the authentication server, or auth server, to communicate with clients. I've derived 2 classes from my networking library, a server and a client for communication specific to this implementation. Now I'm implementing a secure login system. For this, given a user trying to connect, as well as the real password of the user's account, I send that user a random number, or nonce, when they attempt to log in. And then what they do is they hash or permanently encrypt their password with the nonce and send it back over the network, and then my server hashes the real password with the same nonce and compares the two. And this way, the user's password is never directly sent over the network, and this leaves their account secure. So when implementing client login and, loading passwords and that sort of thing, I ran into a couple of errors during my implementation. For one, my SQL statements while accessing the user database were simply written incorrectly. I was repeating the set keyword multiple times when using the update command, which apparently one is not supposed to do. Then I had some problems comparing user passwords, which ended up being a simple object-oriented mistake. When comparing passwords, I would compare the 2 byte arrays, which represented the passwords. And to do that, I was simply using the equals equals operator. So the byte array's identities, or, reference values were being compared, not their contents. The C# was basically questioning, are these 2 byte arrays the same byte array? And obviously they're not going to be the same byte array, even if they have the same contents. So I ended up having to use the sequence equal method to compare the contents of the byte arrays instead of their reference values. And, that's just one of those weird things, since bytes in C# are obviously value types, but byte arrays are not. That's certainly something I've forgotten at least once. But anyway, as you can see here, I'm attempting to log in using a username and 2 different passwords. The first attempt with the correct password works. However, as expected, the second one does not, since I'm not using the right password. Thus finishes the logon system. On to registration. The registration system, at least right now, is quite a simple affair. I built a GUI setup which takes an email and a password, and also requires them to repeat the same password, and creates a new account for the user. Eventually, I'll add some sort of validation to make sure bots can't create spam accounts. Like, for example, sending a confirmation email. That's something that is fairly easy. But that's not the issue right now. The interesting part about registration, though, was that I ended up using a different type of cryptography, which I hadn't used before. Unlike login, since you don't know the user's password beforehand, you can't securely send a new password across a network simply by hashing it, because you don't really know what it'll be. And if you send just the hash password over the network, yes, you protected the user's original password, but now, an attacker could use that hashed password to log on as well. So to transmit user data I don't know beforehand, I'm using RSA, which is a type of asymmetric encryption algorithm. This one is reversible, but it actually uses separate keys or passcodes for encryption and decryption. So I send a public encryption key to the client, and then the client hashes their password, and then encrypts the hash and sends it across the network. I then receive it and decrypt it using the private decryption key that only I, the server, knows. And then I store that password that they sent across the network. And that way, no one can steal their password as it flies across the wide open network where anyone can, look at what they're sending. With all of that out of the way, I have added a couple more small things. There's now a character creation screen where users can set their in-game name, and a menu for managing one's account before one enters the game world. Anyway, it's now time to begin writing the game server code and interfacing it with the auth server and allowing clients to connect as well. Since that's going to take some time, I think I'll do the coding in a time lapse. So, after a fair amount of coding and weeding out some bugs, the game server is done. Also, I have changed the auth server console. It now has pretty colors. Anyway, as I start the various servers, I can tell you a bit about how this is set up. Essentially, to play Voxel Odyssey, the client connects to the auth server and then logs in. Next, they request to be transferred to a game server, and the auth server just sends them the game server's info, IP address, port, that sort of thing, and they connect. Finally, the game server, auth server, and client all together do a sort of handshake where a random number is passed along all three of them to verify the client's identity. Then the client is authenticated on the game server and ready to play. Anyhow, let me open up Voxel Odyssey and log in with a test account. Over in the background, you can see that the auth server does recognize that a client is connected. For demonstration, I'm just going to delete my character and create a new one. Eventually, the screen will be used for customizing various aspects of the player, like hair color or gender, but we don't really have a player yet. So anyway, when I hit play, I'm quickly transferred to the game server, and right now I've got the game set up to simply display a cube which I can move around in just a left, right, up, down sort of fashion. But now, let me boot up another instance, this time with a different test account, and voila! You can see that both clients see each other, though movement is a bit jerky. I just need to add some position interpolation, and it'll be fine. But that is a project for next episode. And with that, I think we've completed my goal for today. I do have two clients now that can see each other, and if I add a third also, they'd be able to see each other as well. So this is the end of the episode. Thank you very much for watching. Please do let me know of any questions or thoughts you have down below in the comments, because I'm always happy to discuss Unity. And please also leave a like as well as subscribe. With that, look out for the next episode in about 2 or 3 weeks. I'll do my best. Have a wonderful day.